Peter Drucker said the purpose of a business is to create a customer. To me, that's always stuck out to me, that quote. The purpose of a business is to create a customer.
Do you think people should be defining that? Do you think it should be like completely defined? What are we doing? What are we doing for the customer, right? Like, how are we interacting with
Well,
them
the larger a
as
company
an
gets,
organization?
the more important it is for things to be clear.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Sell the Truth. This is I believe it's going to be the very last episode of 2024, and I've had a wonderful 24. Today, I have a very special guest, a man who, Jay, when did I meet you? Maybe like 5 years ago now. Met you in a little 100-square-foot cube, and now we're sitting in a 12,000-square-foot office space. Jay Doran, the culture man, a guy who I've looked up to, I've learned a lot from over the years, and a good friend, I would say. Jay, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Welcome to the show. Today we're obviously talking sales, right? But you're Jay Doran, the culture man, and at the Pavement Group, we live, breathe, and double live culture, right? Everything we do, I believe, is centered around culture and how we treat people, and I wanted to talk about that today, and I wanted to talk about how it relates to sales and really how to build culture, an effective culture within a sales team. And the first question I have for you to kick this off, because this is something that's really important. I don't think people understand what culture is. I really don't. And I want to ask you, I want you to share with the people kind of a little bit about yourself, what you do, but then I want you to answer the question on what you believe culture is, and then I'll give you my input as well. So
What do you think it is?
What do I think it is? I believe it's how people feel after we've interacted with them, and I believe it's at the end of the day, I think it's how we treat people. That's 10,000-foot overview what I believe culture is, and a lot of people, when they look at an organization, I believe that they look at culture as, hey, I got a ping pong table and we have pizza parties, and we go out I bring the team out for happy hour. While those things aren't bad, they're all good things, I believe people think that those things are culture. So I'd like to hear, as somebody who has studied culture, who has read hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of books, what is culture? What is culture?
Well, the topic of this show, I really thought about the topic quite a bit because I got your message. How do we build a good culture with a sales team? And it was good culture. It wasn't how do we build bad culture with the sales team. And there's the good versus bad piece that's interesting to me. Like when you ask, what is culture? And I think it's a combination of things. It's the people, right? How many, the people in the group, the behaviors that occur in that group and those that don't, the story driving the group, whether that's clear or not, but there's a story. The symbolism that almost like codifies the meaning of that group, the language that the group speaks, transmits information. It's all these things that it becomes, the more I've studied, the more clear it's become to me how unclear it is, yet we all, we know when it's not there, or when it was and it's gone, or when it's back. And, I used to have this big definition for it, and then I thought, man, that's not it. It's people. People. We're culture. We're past, past, we're future,
Mhm.
we're present, we live. So how do we build good culture with a sales team? First, like, what about how do we build culture with a sales team? So you think you have a group of people, let's say you have 10 people. One of those people, if we're going to do sales team, one of those people is going to stand out as it relates to communicating value to the customers. One of those people will stand out as it relates to communicating value to the customers. And they're going to be communicating that value in their words, their actions, and their words, right? What they say they're going to do, like the expectation before the capital is exchanged for goods and services, the capital from the customer is exchanged for goods and services. Like the salesperson's giving their word in that interaction. It's not yet a customer earned.
Mhm.
Then their word is proven to be wrong or true based on what happens next, the service, the fulfillment. Now, it isn't black and white, like, oh, it's fulfilled or not fulfilled. In a relationship, there are ups and downs. Right? Things happen the way we expect them to happen, or things don't. Neither of us expected for people that, we care about and care about us to include themselves on this podcast. They have their own agenda.
Mhm.
So it's unexpected. Relationships, so that leads to curiosities, that leads to concerns, that leads to thwarted expectations, and it's bumpy, it's up and down. Right? We're talking about what culture is. Culture is people, and people are culture. And like I wrote this down before we started. Money, like capital, right? I'm going to buy this service. I'm going to buy this product from this salesperson. That in that money is an extension of values. Right? It has value, but it has a call to values. Money without values, what value does it have? Right? That's not going to get us very far.
Mhm.
Money with values will take us unlimited. I'm thinking like goods and services without values aren't nearly as good as they are with values. So, I can go down like a rabbit hole on this, but if culture is something that it's there, or and you know what it isn't, and every culture, like, it becomes when in your it says a lot about who you are as a person when you define culture earlier, because you said, I wrote it down. Where is it? My note. It's
How
here.
people feel after you interact with them and how you treat people.
Yeah.
Broken down to the most
Embedded
basic,
in that,
fundamental.
well, that reveals what type of culture is. Like, so how do you actually treat people, right?
Mhm.
Is the company about the customer? Is the company about themselves? And it isn't necessary. It's not a dichotomy where it's 100% one or the other. It's a mixture of the two.
Mhm.
And when is the ratio too much about the company and not enough about the customer? Potentially too much about the customer and not enough about itself. Is the latter even possible? So I think culture is about people and what we actually, what we do, what we aspire to do, what we've done, and how we come together. If we're talking about a business context, it's, why is the business even existence? What's its purpose? How does it help customers or not? And on what spectrum?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
Peter Drucker said the purpose of a business is to create a customer. To me, that's always stuck out to me, that quote. The purpose of a business is to create a customer. That's the purpose. Okay, so from that comes an identity. Like, what are we doing for the customer, and why? How does it help them?
Do you think people should be defining that? Do you think
Which
it
part?
should be like completely defined? What are we doing? What are we doing for the customer? Right? Like, how are we interacting with
Well,
them
the larger a
as an
company gets,
organization?
the more important it is for things to be clear.
Yeah.
Because it's not just this intuitive energy that people feel good about that comes from the founding members.
Yeah.
The more what it can be felt and seen through being close to that. Okay, so let me go back. Where there's a leader, there's a culture. Like,
Good or bad, in between. Good, bad,
yeah,
in between,
like,
all of it.
well, let's talk about the sales culture for a second. If someone has to be communicating value to the customers, and if they're not, then what? Then the company loses the energy, because every second it's like driving a car and the gas is running out. The gas is running out. But there's a friction between new business, right? Getting new business and serving old business, because we can't be in two places at once. So that means we need a team. Now, what makes a team valuable is the complementarity of a team. The complementarity of a team, people that are competent at different things, and if they're like, they may not be able to understand and recognize the commonalities despite their differences, which makes communication difficult, which is what, is a call to leadership. So, like, if we're going to talk about, what makes the culture of a sales team, someone has to be selling. The someone that is selling is the leader. The someone that is selling is the leader, because they're the one that people are going to pick up the values from. The people are going to model the values of the one modeling the values.
And this is why, like, Brian and I have always talked about it. When I moved from salesperson to director, right, I wasn't sure what that transition would look like, but Brian always said, like, you're effectively you're a player coach. I've always referred to myself as that title, right? Like, I'm still selling, still have my own customers. I might have a little more help from the team. I might have more things that I'm pushing to the team. I'm also digging in with the team. I'm working with them on their stuff. But the title's always been kind of like player coach. I'm not just a coach, not just a player anymore. Player coach. It almost feels like I played hockey growing up, right? I played for 14 years. You have the captain of the team, right? The captain of the team, when the coach isn't there, the captain of the team really steps in, and even when the coach is there, they inspire, right? They round the troops up. That is the person that the team looks up to, specifically when the coach isn't there. But even when they are there, like that's second in charge. And so I've always kind of thought about it that way. Like, I'm still, still selling, still teaching, but working right alongside the team as a player coach. And I think as a sales team and as an organization, like, sure, I don't maybe sell, like, do the sales part. There's pieces that I don't do anymore, or day-to-day things that I don't do as much anymore as I did maybe 3 years ago. But as somebody who has gone from salesperson to director, and that's now slowly built or really rather quickly built a sales team, I've always looked at as player coach. And I think for us, like, that's part of the culture, right? It's like, I'm not just going to leave my sales team out there and manage numbers day to day. Like, I'm going to be involved in their stuff, and I've got my own stuff that we're going to keep pushing along.
Yeah. What's worked for you as far as transferring the values?
Well, showing them the values in the day to day, right? Not just talking about it. I think it's holding people accountable, right, to their actions as a coach, but then also being in the trenches day to day and communicating those values by not just telling, not just talking, but actually showing them the values of this organization, right? And keep in mind too, like, when we look to hire people, and I'd like to get your opinion on this too, because I think there's a lot of people that might listen to this who, they might be looking to hire, whether it's their first sales guy on their team, or their fifth or their 10th, right? They're building the sales team. We always look for people with aligned values. We don't always look for the people who are the most qualified when it comes to sales or even this industry. Like, all that stuff can be taught. But when you get the right person in place with the right values, magic happens, right? And I would love to, you've interacted with a lot of different businesses, right? You've seen a lot of different sales teams. I'd love to get your thoughts on how somebody, maybe not even how, but just in general, if they should be looking for a value-driven person, somebody who aligns with their values as an organization, or how they should be looking for people to add to the sales team. Because again, we have found people who haven't met our value, who haven't aligned with our values, and we've made that mistake of hiring them because we thought, okay, I think they could be good. Like, they bring a lot of opportunity. But at the end of the day, they didn't line up with our values, and that was quickly. We saw it very quickly.
Well, how well were you listening?
Yeah, we weren't. Well, at the end of the day, we weren't listening at that point, right? We weren't listening to what we should have been doing, and we quickly realized that.
Yeah, that's the tough thing.
It's a mistake, right?
That's why I think the customer culture is like a consequence of customer service. Mm-hmm. That Drucker quote, the purpose of a business is to create a customer. When we're focused on what are we actually doing and why, what's the solution we're bringing to the marketplace? Who does it help? What do they look like? Where are they? Okay, the more clear we're on that, how much easier is it to engage them? Potential customers.
Oh yeah.
How much easier is it to have conversations, open conversations with current customers? I've observed that it's actually really hard to take customer feedback when we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing for the company.
100%.
Because we're in a reactive, insecure, emotional state. The conscience knows when a management is disengaged. All of this ties in with management and engagement. Because if you go back, like, what makes a culture? It's someone leading. Like, what is leading? They're behaving in a way that others will model. They're behaving in a way that others will model. So they have to be seen, touched, felt, believed in, understood. Like, or it's just going to be fear that drives the culture, where that special something is gone now. So I think you bring for anyone listening to this that cares about their culture, cares about performance, cares about productivity, I think it starts with purpose, which is a consequence of the clarity around the customer's position, absent the value the company brings. Like, what are we doing for the customer? Why are we in existence? How do we benefit them? When the conversations become about the customers, what do they need? Why do they need it? How do we help them? Who are they? Where are they? I could ask all those questions on blue in the face. Then you need to also see me move towards them. Mm-hmm. Like, if we're talking about sales, talk to them, converse. Be courageous, right? Be vulnerable. Have our neck out. Like a potential customer doesn't, have any. It's like the Mark Twain quote: "You want to get humbled? Tell somebody else's dog to sit." If I'm calling a potential customer, I could be the CEO of the company. They don't care. Mm-hmm. They'll hang up just as quickly. Sure. What impact does that have on the people that see that happen?
Yeah.
It shows them, oh, I can do that too. So I think that's an important piece, is hugely important, is the leadership piece of it. What is leadership? What is showing up? What is responsibility? Accountability is a bunch of malarkey. It's a symptom. It's not something to focus on. It's something that happens. It happens as a consequence of responsibility. Like, accountability is, okay, are we telling the truth? Are we honest with one another? And then are we able to cut ties? Or are we able to leave? I have a view on accountability that it's a consequence of responsibility. And so so leaders show up and they lead. They show up and they show the people what to do. They do the work. They are the example. Not all cultures are created equal, just like not all governmental systems are created equal. In some governmental systems, all the weight of responsibility falls on the people, and that's the totalitarian regime. In other governmental systems, the president ages 8 years and 2 because they're burdening the responsibility of the state. They literally age faster. Why? They're sleeping barely at all. They work, they die on the cross of responsibility so the people can be free. It's a very different, that's why I've been thinking about, my culture is such a fun topic to study because it's multifaceted, it is unclear, we're talking about people here.
Mhm.
But
People are complicated.
we have to separate the moral piece from the showing up piece. Like, if you have culture A and culture B, culture A, on one extreme, a person shows up that's in a position of authority, influence, and power, and they model the values, they model the purpose of the organization for others to see how they relate to the customers, the potential customers, the current customers and the potential customers. The people around them pick up on those nuances and they start copycatting them. They model them. Monkey see, monkey do. They could be lying to them all day long and just everyone will copy it because they don't know the difference between what's true and what's false as it relates to the reality that they're creating. But if they're showing up and they're having conversations, they're modeling behaviors that will be modeled. And if you add money to the equation, that gets people to do all sorts of wacky things that make no sense.
Sure.
Now you have
Always.
you have scenario B, where everyone's waiting for the person to show up. They might have a book 2,000 pages deep that tells them how they should live and show up for the customer. It's right there. It's all right there in the book. But in the absence of a leader, meaning someone that's going to show everyone what to do, they'll just wait forever. And what'll happen is they'll start killing each other, disagreeing. No, it's got to be this way. It has to be done this way. It's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. It should be this way. Let me write a new book. Let me make a new book. This is the answer. Someone grabs the book and says, no, wait, watch. This is what I think. Now, people will start following that person. They'll start doing what they're doing because they'll be seeing what they're doing with something or with somebody.
Sure.
That may or may not be the correct thing to do, but people are going to be following them.
Somebody's going to be that leader, and it may or may not be the leader, but it's going to be a leader, and it may or may not be.
And if they don't,
right?
If they don't keep that flow go, if over time, right, they could lose trust of the people that follow them. Yeah. They could lose the respect of the people that follow them. They actually might sow the seeds of the person that kills them and takes their crown. Mm-hmm. And the world is a crazy place.
When I look at this again, I've been an athlete for most of my life, right? And so as it relates to sports, like this is how a coach loses the locker room very quickly, right? This is how a leader could lose their team very quickly, right? It's by, not doing, not relating, not asking the real questions. And I think part of this too, like I want to then think
power
about this.
Corrupts.
It does, yeah.
It confuses. Like if somebody's listening to this, buy Beyond Order and read The Fourth Rule, written by Jordan B. Peterson, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. Notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated, meaning thrown away. Go read that rule. It'll be simple for you. Like too much information out there is telling us, influencing us to pass the buck. I would recommend to people not to build their business for some type of idea of passivity. I would recommend to do the business because you're deeply in tune with who your customer is, what they need, how you can help them. Yeah. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
No. I was going to ask you, That's a great point, right? It's all, I mean, at the Pavement Group, like we're here for the long haul. Like it's not, it's not build this for a year and get out, right? It's never how it's been. And that's never what Brian's vision has been here too. When it relates to a sales leader, right? When it relates to somebody who is leading a sales team, I want to share real quick just a tactical way that, one thing that I do on a week-to-week basis that I can get in front of my sales team. And I would love to hear from you too, like how can a leader continue to develop their sales team? How can they continue to build a real relationship with them? And for me, I think it really starts with your intention behind what you're doing, right? Like my sales team, like they're not just here to get a paycheck and leave. And I don't see them as that. Like
It depends which leader we're talking, right? But go ahead. I want to answer.
How do you build an effective, like that? That's what I kind of want to talk about here is like, how do you build an effective and real, a good culture, right? We talked about at the start, we talked about good, bad, in between, right? How do you build a good culture? And when I look at it, like for me, one tactical thing that I do that you guys can take away from if you are a sales leader is by having, it's very simple, but it's by having one-on-ones with my team every single week to build real relationships. We have an agenda for what we talk about, right? We have different things that we need to hit as it relates to business, but we also talk about personal things that might be going on in their life, what they have coming up. Right now we're recording this a handful of days before Christmas. What they have going on for Christmas. It's a relationship building thing for me, and I'm not asking these questions just to ask them 1 year in, 1 year out. No. I genuinely want to get to know my team better. And so just one thing that I would highly recommend for anybody out there that's listening, like as you're building an effective sales team, as you're wanting to build an effective sales team, a good culture, a sales team surrounded by good culture, making time for those. And we don't meet every single week. There are weeks where our team's gone for trade shows and we got to punt for to the next week. Things like that. Things happen. But it's on the schedule. It's there. It's a time for us to meet and talk about what's going on, how they're feeling about things, voice their concerns, voice their opinions on things, right? So I'd love to hear from you.
I think it's a great component, and I think, but it's a percentage of if you're engaged, if you're that engaged, let's say, like you're spending that time, you're also going to figure out who has it and who doesn't, and the ones that don't. The job is to get rid of them. Now, how one gets rid of them was going to reveal the values of that person, and the values of the company. Like, are we actually able to act out the values that we say we believe, that are written on the wall? So, if you are that let's say that we do the inverse of that. You never meet with your team.
Yeah,
you never do. Now we could go by results. Let's look at the numbers and see who's most performing. At the same time, in that extreme, maybe we don't know that person that's performing at the highest level from a result standpoint, the things they're saying aren't in alignment with the values. Maybe, how they're interacting with employees in the organization. I mean, they could be making a company a ton of money, and then it's coming all out in the back end on all the lawsuits they're getting from all the things that they're doing because the person above them stopped paying attention to who they actually are as a person. So that's on the other extreme. Now, I'm back to the meeting. If I'm meeting constantly and I'm listening, that doesn't necessarily mean that they know what to do. And the question becomes, or they can do it. So a percentage is listening, a percentage is speaking, a percentage is showing. So tactically, how often are we getting together and I'm modeling it? How often am I listening and figuring out, is this person on the right path? Do I know them? Are they a fit? Like, have things changed? Right? And a big part of it is the results. People, and this is where it goes to actually, so it's two things, right? It's modeling it and staying engaged, because our lives can change. If something happens outside of business, all of a sudden the person that was once the rock star is now like rock bottom. Sure. What do you do about that? How do you approach that? How do you?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. Every scenario is a little bit different.
And then that conversation is going to flow upstream, and then that'll be what's the quality of the management?
The first question I would ask is have you built a culture where that person is comfortable talking to you about whatever it is that, have a real conversation, right? If you have a real relationship, you can have a real conversation, and it might, no matter how it ends, like at least it's a real conversation. You're not sugarcoating it with whatever, right? As a sales leader, like if you build a real relationship, you can have a real conversation about what's going on. And I truly believe that. Like it starts, part of the show is like, in sales, I truly believe in real relationships. I'm not a transactional, quick sale, sleazy kind of salesperson. No. It's build real and authentic relationships and, be a solution for people. And when it comes to sales leadership, it's like, it is so crucial that I build a real relationship with my sales team. Because if I don't, they'll be left out on an island. And when things do go south, because listen, we all have things that go on in our lives, right? You all have a week that's bad or a month that's bad. Sometimes it's a year, right? How do you approach that? How can you have a real conversation? It starts with a real relationship with that person. That's open, honest, transparent. They're comfortable with bringing those things to you to have that conversation. And
but I want to say that I think that's a consequence of the focus on. So maybe by nature, your focus is on the customer. Would you disagree with that? Maybe you see it differently.
No, I don't disagree.
Like the self-awareness of the salesperson has a relationship with their customer orientation, because the customer is an anchor, is an accountability feedback loop. Like companies that can't handle customer reviews, they're not listening. They're contradicting the function that they serve in the market, which is the purpose of a business is to create a customer, to serve the customer. So I think there's a relationship between self-awareness and service to customer. And self-awareness has a relationship with the management of the team. The ability to listen to the team and to know who's bought it and who's not, who's capable, who's not, and how to navigate that, and how to have those tougher conversations. Like that's where if we're talking about like long-term shareholder growth is going to have a customer orientation, because the purpose of the business is to solve the customer's problems. It's not just to be an end in itself, but a means to an end, and that end is to solve the customer's problems. So how the company relates to its customers, how the salesperson relate, and that goes back to like what are the driving forces, And I think we're more likely to attract salespeople that their personal values are attracted to that. The more clear as an organization, starting from the top, we are on why we exist, what we do, how we do it.
So would you say if somebody right now is either an owner or leader within an organization, and that is unclear and
it oftentimes is, because it's intuitive and nuanced, and like there's like some kind of passion that runs in their blood in the beginning.
Yeah. How does one, especially if they're a big leader in an organization, or they're an owner, like maybe they've been in business for a handful of years and they're trying to grow it, but it's a little bit unclear, right? How does one effectively sit down and figure that out?
Well, that's going to be who they're learning from. That's going to be who they're learning from. Like that's going to be how strong their leadership team is. Oh no, I have a weak leadership team. Then you're a weak leader.
True.
It's what do you believe? Like that's where it's what do you believe in? Why are you even working? Where are you going? How responsible are you? What are your obligations in life? Who are you doing it for? What's driving you? Our culture today has got a lot of twisted information. There's this undertone of business owners should feel shame for working. I believe that's a big cultural issue
Mhm.
in business.
Mhm.
Like, you should be, for whatever reason, doing something other than what you're supposed to be doing.
Mhm.
And I deeply disagree with that. I think it's a tremendous amount of responsibility. So put it this way, as a business grows, everything's constantly changing. So it needs to be reinvigorated, reengaged, reimagined, innovated.
Mhm.
And that takes an engaged management team. That takes an engaged CEO. It takes an engaged um, leader to re-engage and reimagine and reinvigorate.
Mhm.
Right? It's thinking it, it's acting it, it's communicating it, it's relating it. It's
Yeah.
an all-encompassing. You know, I that would be my answer. Is if we're gonna make the conversation, if I'm as simple as possible, it's like people are going to do what they see in those they admire and they respect. And if they don't see much, they won't do much.
Or if they see the wrong thing, they will do the wrong thing without even maybe knowing it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
totally,
All the time. I mean, it happens all the time.
totally,
Right. And it might not even, to them, it might not even be the wrong thing. That's the thing. You know,
Agree.
it could be the right thing to them in their eyes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where tactical you talk. Yes, but do we meet? How do we meet?
Yeah.
And for how long? And what gets done? And who talks and who doesn't? And who's asking questions and who isn't?
Yeah.
People lose purpose. Especially, in the beginning, success, the pursuit of it, right? The pursuit of success, that could be a driving force for a business owner that's listening to this. It won't be enough once somewhat a modicum of success has been created. It needs to be deeper than that. It needs to be an obligation, a responsibility, an inspiration. It can't just come from the lack of resources and the desire for a lack of accountability. Like, I want to have a business because I want to do what I want when I want.
Mhm.
That will not manifest into a large group of, people following one for long. It's got to come from a deeper place, because, and that's why I think the culture today, people, a lot of these ideas don't work. It's like you show up early, you leave late.
Mhm.
You talk to customers, they buy, you service them. You know
Yeah.
what your
Don't get it
purpose is.
confused.
Like, what are we? Why do we exist? Okay, so
Yeah.
why does culture matter? Because culture is people. People work. Work brings resources to families, to people. Work helps us develop and mold and shape our values.
Mhm.
Business is a big part of our life. We all need leaders to follow. Leadership is culture, and culture is leadership. We need to be inspired, and we also need to be in spirit. We need to be serving others to have meaning and significance and be a part of a team and have and help others, right? We need to be helped and help others. So much value comes to our personal lives, our interpersonal lives, when we work and we're proud of what we're doing and who we're doing it with and how we serve. It can be fun and exciting and exhilarating, and I mean, it's part of life. And if a company, yeah, I think if to build a strong sales team, someone has to be selling.
Mhm. Player coach. Strongly believe that. Well, Jay, this has been a really good conversation. I feel like we could go for hours and hours and hours on this. I really do. I mean, this is a topic that we could continue to unpack. Unfortunately, I do have to get home. It's getting late in the day, but we will continue this conversation, and I'd love to have you on again. I'm very, very, very grateful for having you on. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Any last remarks? Any last comments? when it comes to culture and sales teams. I mean, you've read thousands of books. You've consulted with tons and tons and tons of businesses of all different sizes and calibers. And when I think of somebody who is just well versed and just has studied their topic, I think of you and culture. So is there anything? Seriously, I believe that, and I like when I think culture, I think Jay. When I think Jay, I think culture. Is there anything that you would like to add? Your last remarks as relates to culture.
Keep learning. Yeah, keep learning and be engaged.
I love it. Never stop.
Yeah, what I'm doing is impacting more about culture than what I'm saying, or what I think about what I'm saying. What I think about culture has evolved and become unclear in some ways and more clear in others. Like, I have a responsibility to the message to continue to do the podcast, write, service customers, like show up. That would be the message to show up, and that matters, to show up.
The team sees it. More people are watching than you think.
That's what that matters. And like, if you're a business owner, don't start something you're not willing to finish. Don't start a relationship you're not willing to finish. Don't sell somebody you're not willing to service. Mm-hmm. Don't sell the idea and then don't finish it. Sell it and finish it. A sale is an expectation. The culture is the reality of that expectation. It's like the relationship. We're not going to be in a relationship if I don't live up to your expectation of me. Mm-hmm. So not for long. It won't be a healthy one. So, that would be my final. Keep learning. That's what I'm focused on, and I'm just trying to figure it out like anybody else. But I think it matters. Yeah. I think the idea of culture matters because businesses and how we do business, as we are more entitled, it's like, how do I say it? Well, I think we're all looking for leaders. I know I am. And I've had to find it in myself because of how low the bar is.
Well, Jay, I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
You're a great leader.
Yeah, thank you. And I've learned a lot from you, and I appreciate you for jumping on here. You have a lot of knowledge in that head of yours, and I just can't wait to. Every time I talk to you, man, it's like I unpack a little bit more slowly, one conversation at a time. So
I think I'm just trying to say a lot of the things that people like you embody and how they show up. Yeah, and it's hard to say them because they're so deep and transcendent and real. Like, how do you explain the love somebody has for customers and how they show up in a moment?
Well, thank you. Thank you for being on, Jay. I appreciate you. And guys, tune in to the next episode here. Jay, if somebody wants to hear a little more from you, I know you put out videos all the time. Where could they find you?
Yeah, the Culture Matters podcast. Yeah. It's black and gold background. Every day that episode goes out.
Thank you. Oh, right on. Thank you, guys. Thank you for tuning in and paying attention to this one. This is a good one. I'd suggest you go back and rewatch this or re-listen to it, rather. I know there's a lot of good stuff to unpack here. And go on and listen to Jay's podcast. He's got hundreds of podcasts. So appreciate you guys for tuning in to the last episode of 2024 for Sell the Truth. Catch you later.